Hello, Dr. Michael A. Brown here, welcoming you to another meditation moment. A couple of weeks ago, we began at the Westview Church a new series on worship. This is for our adult Bible class on Sunday mornings. Now, the subject of worship in and of itself is quite interesting, and most of us are familiar with what is taught in John chapter number 4, verses 23 and 24, about God being a spirit and those who worship him must do so in spirit and in truth. Most of us can give a fairly good explanation of that text. We know to worship in spirit has the idea of worshiping with sincerity. And we also know that to worship in truth has the idea of doing so according to God's word. But there's more to that than what really meets the eye. About a couple of months ago, I decided to start studying this subject on my own in preparation for just some more spiritual development, spiritual discipline. And that led to our new series at Westview. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened to come to that point. I believe God was trying to lead me to something. When it comes to worship, what we find is that it's something that we have to be preparing for individually before we can come together and worship appropriately as a collective group. What do I mean by worshiping individually? When you look at the book of Psalms, you'll find, I believe, a greater definition of worship than any particular words can express. Because the Psalter is a collection of thoughts of communion with God. They incorporate struggles with God, misunderstandings of God, cries out to God, complaints against God. They include praise and thanksgiving. All of these things are caught up in that collection. What you really read is the heart of worship by looking at people's hearts. Now, we're most familiar with David, but there are other authors of Psalms. Suffice it to say that that collection really makes us think about what it means to walk with God on a daily basis. When it comes to you and me and our daily living, there are things that we encounter that really can shake our world. They're the big things such as death in the family, sickness, whether it be personal or somebody in the family. There are other things that are not so world-ending, if you will, such as the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship. These are the types of things that shake life. And then there are the frustrating things, such as problems with household things, car breaking down, any things like that. When you combine all of that together, and then you add in sometimes our relationship struggles, even with among God's people, we find ourselves reacting in various ways. And these reactions are part and parcel of what it means to walk with Christ. The scriptures are replete with instruction on how we are to behave and how we are to act in certain circumstances. And we're familiar with that for the most part. I'm finding, and I think you're finding as well, as long as we live and as long as we follow Christ, instructions are easy to understand, but they're a lot more difficult to apply, a lot more difficult to execute. And all of this together, this angst that we have at times, these struggles that we have in trying to walk with the Lord, all of that should motivate us to stay in constant communion with the Lord in our prayers, in our meditation, in our day-to-day living. When you read some of the Psalms, you'll find that some of the cries are to God first thing in the morning, to God late at night. We need to stay in communion with the Lord on a daily basis, but not just a daily basis, the various hours of the day as things are taking place in life, our disappointments, our fears, our victories, our troubles, all of those things together. These are times to communicate with God. Take a break from lunch, go to your car and talk to the Lord. Meditate on his word, or even while you're doing other things at work. Whatever we're doing, it's a time to be thinking about God's word and thinking about our lives and thinking about how the mix of trying to follow the word and live the word And the various reactions and the results of that all impact how we feel toward God. Now, at the end of all of that, it's got to be times of praise and thanksgiving. This is what we refer to as daily personal worship. All of it together, daily personal worship. Now, as we deal with these different things in life, and as we wrestle with our Lord when it comes to these various things in life, what we'll find is a heart that is becoming full. So much so that by the time we come together for corporate worship, everybody contributes something to it. And we're all lifting up the Lord together. You're bringing what has been troubling you or what you've been having victory in. And I'm bringing mine and the others are bringing theirs. And together, when we begin to lift up our voices in praise, we are truly worshiping. We're getting connected with God. Now, often people feel as if I didn't get anything out of the worship. Well, sad to say, many aren't really willing to bring anything to it. You can't just turn it on. No particular switch can be flipped to make us want to worship all of a sudden the minute we come into the door. And if it is, it's not consistent. No, true worship, heartfelt worship is developed in our day-to-day struggle, in our walk with God, our day-to-day celebration of his victories. And as we keep all those things in account, and we give God praise throughout the week. We struggle with God throughout the week. We bring our heart to him throughout the week. In our time of worship, wow, our time as a corporate worship, our Sunday services will be lifted to a whole new level. But it begins with our individual time of worship. And so this week, you keep food diaries, you keep other types of diaries. Keep a diary of God's interaction in your life. Give him thanks for what he's doing. Ask him questions for what you feel he's not doing. Bring and pour your heart out to him every day, every night. And then come together for the worship of the Lord with the church. And you'll find yourself being lifted, being convicted, being able to give him the praise that he desires. And oh, by the way, you'll be able to set fire to somebody else. Well, give us some thought this week. Join us again next time for another meditation moment.